Alright, so as promised, I know it's been a while, but I finally got some cordage in to test, and I'm going to be going over how a little bit more in-depth instruction on how I do this core only splice on this Kernmaster. Now, in the past, all the samples that I've tested with splicing Kernmaster at all have been from the Phantom variety, so with the polyester core. Which is kind of the same as Tenex Tec, like Samson. If you've ever spliced any of those big rigging slings, that's basically it's just polyester, and this core is woven very much in the same way. Two strands in a 12 carrier braid or whatever. But I did this splice that was core only, and when I had it tested, it came back with a higher result than even just doing the regular or the adapted double braid splice with this, and it's a little bit faster, so I'll kind of show you how to do this, because it's a lot more efficient to do and it's plenty strong. You can see the core is kind of fluffy, so to protect it, what you can do is dip it in water-based polyurethane, but I don't have this splice like officially, like this isn't approved by anyone else. This is just something that I've done and had tested once with Kernmaster Phantom, and now I'm gonna make 3 of these and send them off to get tested, so we can kind of get a good idea of whether or not this is a good splice or not. Now, although this is a 11mm rope, I will be using a 1/2" fid to splice it, just because, I don't know, I like the lengths for this. I feel like it gives me I don't know, an appropriate back splice. On Tenex Tec, it's kind of like 2 fid lengths of back splice, which that would just be a little bit overkill, I feel like, for this. I don't know. I mean, I got pretty good results with just using a 1/2" fid length. But yeah, you can see this splice is kind of stiff, so like maybe could look into more aggressive core tapering. But basically the cover is just whipped onto the core. There's nothing holding it in there. I did attempt a splice with this kind of in the same way that you can kind of do a fancy splice with like Dyneema cord, like sailing ropes, where you take the cover and then put it through the loop of the core to kind of lock it into place. But the cover's too tight over the core, and I wasn't quite able to pull that off. And since the only reason I was splicing this is because this is a lot easier than doing the double braid splice, I was just like, I'm not gonna pursue this. So I'm just gonna make 3 samples of this, and while I make this next sample, I'll kind of show you how to splice it. So it's kind of important to think about when you're with this splice. Like, you could just pull the core out, do the double locking Brummel and bury, and then just milk the cover back over it. But then you're going to end up with a bunch of excess cover, and you'll either have to like find some way to cut it away, or you're going to have to milk it all the way to the end of the rope, which if you're just making a lanyard, if you only have like 10 to like 20 feet of this, that's not that big of a deal. But if you have like 120 feet of this, I don't know, I wouldn't really be fond of milking that much slack through 120 feet of it. So if you want to make it look really, really clean, I think that's probably the best way to do it, to do all the steps I'm going to do with the core, but instead of pulling the core out somewhere else, to just pull it out of the end. And it also looks a little bit cleaner if you like heat shrink it. I ran out of heat shrink tubing, so I'm just whipping it. But if you were to put some heat shrink tubing on, pull the core out, do your double locking Brummel and bury, and then milk the cover back over it, and then whip it on and melt that heat shrink tubing down, that looked super clean. The Bifrost that I had tested, I did like that, and that splice looks so good. And yep, it was just pulled the core out, double locking Brummel and bury, and then dipped it in water-based polyurethane. But this one, I'm trying to come up with a way that you could do this with like a really long section of rope, where it wouldn't be practical to pull it out at the end and then milk all the stuff to the end, which means that you have to extract the core at some point, which makes this take a little bit longer, but I don't think it's horribly longer, I guess. So yeah, anyways, we're going to be using a 1/2" fid to do all our marking, and I guess just some kind of ruler just for making the eye, but that's about all you need any kind of ruler for. But yeah, let's get into it and start marking stuff. So what we are going to do is make a mark that is, so this is our 1/2 inch fid. So Samson fids have this marking and they only ever notate this as a short fid. I'm going to call this section that's from the end up to that mark for the short fid like a medium fid, even though technically, however you define it, this is technically a fid length, with the entirety being a long fid and this end being a short fid. But we'll just call this medium fid or whatever. So we're going to mark on the core or on the cover kind of like a medium fid length. And now this is where we're going to extract the core. So I'm just going to stop recording here because it's kind of a pain to extract the core from this rope. But yeah, we're just going to, well, what you could do, either extract the core here or very carefully cut the cover away from the core here. It's up to you. Do it however you want, but I personally am going to extract the core, and then once I milk everything back on and whip it on, I'll cut the cover off and just kind of burn it into place. But yeah, so that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to extract it here. If you're kind of new to extracting core from 24 strand ropes or things like that, just pull the core out a little bit and get some slack into the cover so that it's a little bit easier to open the cover up and get out the core. Alright. Oh, and when I did this, I just tied a knot, let's see, just do an alpine butterfly 6 feet up from the end of the rope. Might be a little bit overkill, but I like it. Alright, so now we're going to start marking the core for the important part of the splice. So I'm going to let's call it our mark A. And that's just going to be back 1/2 inch fid length from the end. And then we're going to make our eye, which for a good tight eye, I found that 4 inches is pretty good, but maybe if you're new to this splice, I don't know, it's not a bad idea to go more for like 4.5 inches, make it a little bit easier. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is our 4-inch eye. So this is a pretty sweet trick that I learned from splicing Beeline. I'll link the YouTube video where I saw it, but it's a very great way to make a double Brummel when you don't have access to the other end of the line. So we're going to take our fid, poke it through at point B is what we're calling this one. So poke it through. Oh boy. Now I'm just going to quick make sure that I have the same amount of strands on each side. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what I'm going to do is I just have this little length of paracord. This is going to be kind of used as a fid. I'm just going to do it at this point to make it a little bit easier. So just putting it around the paracord so that when I close up this eye a little bit, the paracord will be in the eye. So there, we're closing this up very tight, but not all the way. And you can see we have the paracord kind of stuck in there, and that's going to help this next part a little bit. So now we're going to go to our point A, and we're going to make sure to go in on the same side. I'm going to go under this one. And make sure we have 6 strands on each side. Or 6 pairs on each side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Alright. So now with this eye, we are going to, oh, come on. Well, at least that hole was still kind of open. Yeah, stuff like this is really easy to splice. Sometimes you don't even need a fid. You could just make sure your tape is really smooth. But now, see, we have both our little loops on the same side here. but now I'm going to completely invert this one. So I'm going to pull it through until we have this like flat hole opening up here. Now I'm going to open that hole with my fingers a little bit and then take the ends of the paracord and pass them through. And now we're going to pull that through. And as it pulls through, this end will reorient. And now when I pull it tight, you'll see that just looks like a regular locking Brummel. There we go. Just a regular locking Brummel. So now we just got to do the back splice. So we are going to go 2 picks up from where this kind of crossover happens. So 1, 2. I don't know, I just go back kind of as far as the fid's gonna barely fit, like almost a fid length with it all scrunched up like this. Probably should measure that, but it's whatever. Then we're gonna push it through to make our back splice. Now we're just going to pull it nice and tight, and we are going to do our taper. The best way to taper ropes like these, where they kind of have like paired carriers, in my personal opinion, is to get it down to 50% up to the tip. So basically what I'm going to do is, since in the core here they're all in pairs, I'm going to take out half of the pair on the way up, and then it'll just be 50% of the core up at the tip, and then for the last 3 inches I'll just cut it off at an angle. So I'll go down as far as I can get, basically to where it's coming out of the core. So you want, like, well, let's say, what would a good metric be? You want to be able to go down like a medium fid length from the end to start your taper. And this stuff's so loose, it's so nice that you can just take the half strands out with just your fingers. And I don't skip any. I just go up and I'll do all the anti-clockwise winding ones first, and then starting with that last anti-clockwise one, I'll start doing the clockwise ones. And then just to keep these together while I'm cutting all those, I'll just put a clothesline clip on there. Just cut all these off. If you're really talented, you can just pick them and cut them with the scissors. I've seen people who are much better than me do that. Alright, now I'll just cut the final like 3 inches off at an angle. Then we're just going to grab our eye, still has the paracord in it, and just milk it back and bury the core. And now it is time for us to milk the sheath back over the core. Now I'm not going to show that, it just takes a bit of effort, but where I'm aiming for is, if we look at these double Brummels, I'm going to get the core to at least here, where the insertion for the first Brummel begins. That's where I want my, kind of where that black Sharpie mark is, that's where I want the edge of the cover to end up over the core. Alright, so there we have it. I have it all milked back over the core. Now, this is why I said, like, if you just pull the core straight out of the cover, you're going to end up with a much more cleaner finish. You can see how this is kind of tapered up over the core because we extracted the core. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do lock whipping right here on the throat, all the way up to where the cover stops, and then I'll do it all the way up to where the cover stops, and then I'll just, once I finish whip locking, then I'll cut off the excessive amount of cover and just kind of burn down the little strands to finish it up just like this. Hopefully with this one I'll get it just a little bit cleaner than this one. Look a little bit nicer. But you can see it has a stiff but not immovable area for about a fid length down from the eye. I mean, it's not terrible, but this just goes so nice and quick. It's a great way to splice these things pretty fast. Maybe not the most visually enticing, but you know, it works. So something kind of fun that I just did to finish this one, that I need to do the whipping better. It does look kind of gross, but I just, since I extracted from the cover, I just fed the cover back through the splice, and that keeps it a little bit more open inside. So I just fed the cover, cut it, and then whipped it on. It looks kind of ugly. Doesn't look great. But the eye, I think the eye looks better. So if I incorporate some heat shrinking and make the whipping not look absolutely terrible, I think this would be a sweet way to clean up this splice. So that is how I went about making these core-based splices for Kernmaster. The reason this is possible, you can't do this with a regular double braid rope, because Kernmaster is a Kern mantle rope, so it's core dependent. So since it's core dependent, it gets all its strength from the core. That's what that means, I guess. And that means that if we just splice the core, it should retain basically all of its strength. These sheaths are not very strong. I've broken the sheath itself with just my own body weight before, so it's getting all that wonderful strength from the core. So I'm gonna have 3 of these made up and send them in to get tested to see if this is a viable method. And yeah, pretty fun, definitely cool, like playing with this, and it is a much faster way to splice this Kernmaster. So please subscribe if you're looking forward to seeing those break tests, because I mean, I probably won't get them on video, but I'll get them broken, and then we can discuss kind of the results. One of my concerns when I first broke Bifrost was that the cover would shear way before the core, meaning like if you had an ascender or something that was relatively close to the top, like what if you like sat down into it pretty hard and it just severed the core away from, or the cover away from the core. But they broke at the same time in the break test in the same place, so that's not really a concern of mine anymore. So just doing a whip lock right here, right at the throat, is all you need to do. But yeah, these are pretty sweet, and I'm excited to get them break tested and see if this is a good method. A little bit different that this is actually exposed nylon. You don't often see exposed nylon in a lot of textiles. I guess some slings maybe, and some components on harnesses, but usually you want it to be polyester if it's going to get a lot of wear. It's a little bit more durable and a little bit more UV resistant, even though nylon's just a little bit stronger. But you know, yeah, we'll see how these fare since this is the regular nylon Kernmaster. But yeah, love this rope, and definitely going to be buying more of it just for my regular climbing systems. But yeah, I'm excited to have this break tested and see if this is a viable option. So please like and subscribe if you learned anything from this video and are excited to see more.